As my mother would instruct me to say, please excuse my back. I apologize. Sade, I just told her when she walked off the stage, when she's president and they say Joe Biden's out in the waiting room, she promised me she won't say Joe who. Please, do you have seats? Okay. I once said that early on in my tenure, Gov, and I said, everybody take a seat. None of them had seats. Well, I tell you what, you guys are impressive. And three of you are really close friends. And one's about to become a close friend. Gov, my problem is your biceps are a little small. And you're not in very good shape, but maybe I'll work with you, see what we can do. No, but really and truly, thank you. And I appreciate it very much. Senator Ben Cardin is one of the great, I hate the phrase public servants, but it is true. You know, I judge my colleagues over the years based on not just their intellectual capacity and their decency, but their integrity. The men you have here have incredible integrity. And it's just amazing. Chris Van Hollen is one of the reasons why I got elected vice president. He's the guy that did my debate prep for me. And without it, I'd been in real trouble. And Steny Hoyer, he and I share the eastern shore of Delaware and the western shore of Maryland. You know that whole area in there? I keep telling him it really is part of Delaware, but he doesn't. And David, thank you for being such a great partner. You've been great as well. I really do appreciate it. Prince George's Community College, thanks for welcoming us here today. As many of you know, my wife is a professor at the community college. Matter of fact, she's teaching today. She has an expression, and I mean, this is the God's truth. She said, any country that out-educates us will out-compete us. Any country that out-educates us will out-compete us. The work you do here in preparing students to compete in the economy of the future is real. It matters. This summer, I traveled to Chicago where I spoke about a fundamentally changing American economy. From an economy that for decades rewarded those who are at the very top and left everyone behind, who just on their own, basically. One that gives working people in this nation not only a fighting chance, they didn't do. You know, that trickle-down economy, not a whole lot. I grew up in we weren't poor, but we had a 3-bedroom split-level house with 4 kids and a grandpop living with us. And I didn't see a whole lot trickle down on my dad's kitchen table. But, you know, everybody deserves a shot at building the lives they deserve for their families. And we've done that for the first time in a long time. We've climbed out of our great economic crisis. It's beginning to work for working people. This nation is very rich. And who have benefited the most has been the very rich, though, not everybody. And that's not how it should be. The new economic vision has been labeled by those in the Wall Street Journal and the London Economist and some of the more conservative press as bidenomics. Well, they didn't mean it as a compliment at first. But now they're getting it. What's bidenomics? It's about investing in, and I feel like I'm going to try not to repeat some of what my colleagues have already said, but it's about investing in America. Investing in America and investing in Americans, American people. It's about growing the economy from the middle out and the bottom up instead of the top down. Because when the middle class does well, the poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do very well. I'm a capitalist. If you guys go out here and you can make $1 billion, go get it. Just pay a little more in taxes. But look, but our friends on the other team, on the other side of the aisle, they have a very different vision for America. And by the way, you have this, I think you have this book on your table, on your chairs, maybe not. Well, I thought did my staff hand this out? You just have a little one. Well, I'm the only president who hands out the opposition's economic plan. Oh, you think I'm kidding? Protecting American Economic Security, fiscal year 2024, the budget, the study committee of Kevin Hearn, budget, and it goes on. This is the mega budget. You know, I want you to take a look at it. I think we have other copies of it. If we don't, we'll get you some. So since I've come to office, all they've really done is attack me and my economic plan. There hadn't been much else. Even though we've created, as has been pointed out, over 13 million jobs, more jobs in 2 years than any president's created in a 4-year term. Even though, I'm not looking, even though we've had 19 straight months of unemployment under 4% for the first time in American history. Even though we have the lowest inflation rate of any major economy in the world, with core inflation rate the last 3 months at 2.4%. We got more to do, even though we've created 800,000 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing boom we haven't seen in decades. Even though America, as we met here today, has the strongest economy in the world. Let me say that again. America has the strongest economy in the world of all major economics. And all they do is attack it. But, you know, you've noticed something. For all the time they spend attacking me and my plans, here's what they never do. They never talk about what they want to do. No, think about it. They tell you what they're against. What are they for? It's like they want to keep it a secret. I don't blame them. Well, today I'm going to talk about their plans. Look, we're going to talk about the MAGA Republican economic plan. And by the way, this is not your father's Republican Party. This is a different deal, all kidding aside. We've all worked with Republicans on the other side over our careers and become good friends, honest, decent people. Disagree like hell with them, but they were in the deal. They thought the institutions mattered. They thought it mattered. Well, guess what? Our democracy is at risk because I don't think they do think it matters anymore. Because the country should know the facts. They should know the choice between bidenomics and maganomics. American growth and hope, and we're building, or American lost jobs, raising fears. MAGA Republicans gave us a few short years ago. Look, their plan, maganomics, is more extreme than anything America's ever seen before. Just months ago, they went further than anyone has ever gone, 20 years old. Default, unless we gave them everything they wanted. We gave them nothing they wanted. We gave them nothing, and we got a deal. But up to now, Republicans have given us a failed plan, a trickle-down economics that didn't work. My guess is your story is just like mine. Not much trickle-down ended up helping y'all. Instead, there's what trickle-down economics did. It shipped jobs overseas. There's a basic thing. Find the cheapest place in the world for labor, send the jobs there, the product there, and then import the product home. Well, you know, they hollowed out the main streets of America. They did the same for the middle class. They blew up the deficit. It produced an anemic economic growth, if any growth at all. And it stripped us dignity and pride and hope out of a community, one after another. You know, when you have those communities where there's been that factory employing 250 people in a small community for years and years, and then it closes down, you don't just lose the jobs. You lose a sense of belonging. People lose hope. They lose their pride. They lose their sense of pride. And now these MAGA Republicans have taken a plan I've never worked, and you know, look, the plan they're proposing never worked, but they decided to make it much, much worse. Now Republicans in Congress are doubling down with a plan that does three things. One, it cuts taxes even more for the very wealthy and big corporations. Two, it cuts Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Three, it raises costs for families, gutting investments in the middle class. Under their plan, the top 1%, 1/10 of 1% of households that make over $4 million a year are going to get another tax cut worth more than 2 times what the typical American family makes in a single year. Let me say that again. 2 times what the average family makes a year is going to be the tax cut they're proposing to give to the very wealthy. MAGA Republicans in Congress are also trying to undo the progress we made to make getting, you know, look, what I was able to do in what they call the G7 among the NATO countries and European countries, I was able to get them to all agree, and then around the world, all the democracies, agree that we were going to have a global minimum tax on corporations, meaning that you couldn't have offering a tax to build or make something in another country that's considerably lower than what the tax would be in that country where, in fact, it comes from. And that global minimum tax was finally agreed. It took me a better part of a year to get it done. And guess what? They want to get rid of it, let corporations go back to shifting jobs and profits overseas and avoiding paying taxes at home. And who's going to pay for that? Well, now we know because the MAGA Republican Congress has finally released the budget I just referenced. And the answer is seniors and hardworking Americans are going to pay for it. They don't talk much about, but I got the budget. I mean, literally, it's here. And it's all in black and white. And just for your convenience, I thought I left it. My staff told me they left a copy on your seats, but I guess they didn't. So here's what it does. Their budget gives $5.1 trillion in additional tax cuts skewed to the wealthy people and big corporations while cutting $700 billion from Social Security. Hear me now? $700 billion from Social Security and $1 trillion from Medicare. Let me say that again. Cut Social Security by $700 billion and Medicare by $1 trillion. They want to raise the Social Security retirement age, which means a 13% cut in benefits for seniors who retires at the age of 67. Imagine, you work your whole life. Every single paycheck you've had, you paid into that system. You thought you'd be able to retire with a little bit of dignity. Our MAGA Republican Congress also want to take Medicare away from more than 1 million Americans with disabilities. Now, if they hadn't done what they've done the last 2 years, you might not believe me. But I promise you, I gave you my word, that's what they're proposing. They want to cut Medicaid in the Affordable Care Act and the Children's Insurance Program by more than half. What does it mean? Under maganomics, as I'm calling it, tens of millions of Americans could lose their insurance. Waiting lists would skyrocket for seniors who need home or community-based care because they have nowhere else to go. They can't have no family to take care of them. Children would not get adequate health care. MAGA Republicans don't think we should be investing in education, and that's not an exaggeration. Students here at Prince George's Community College should know MAGA Republicans in Congress want to slash Pell Grants. More than 6 million students who count on these grants to be able to afford to go to college would lose it. That's what they're pressing for. You saw how they took on my attempt to eliminate student debt. Although we're still going to eliminate a hell of a lot of student debt. And by the way, they actually want to cut 1,800 food safety inspectors. I'm serious. I mean, unless I was in, I don't know, Russia, you wouldn't think these would make any sense. But here, so they want to slash research on cures for cancer and Alzheimer's by nearly $4 billion. I got my team over here to go along with when President Obama allowed me to set up a whole effort to deal with cancer, allowing me to use any office, any administration facility. And we've invested billions of dollars. We're on the cusp of changing cancer. As you know, we made a commitment, cut cancer in half in 25 years and extend life to Americans suffering from cancer by significant numbers. And it's happening. But they want to cut the funding. Cut the funding. They want to cut funding that guarantees the clean air and clean water. They don't want those inspectors out there. The new Republican meganomics would mean 82,000 children would lose access to Head Start for low-income students and affordable preschool. Not only are they not willing to support our joint effort among your delegation and me to make sure that we're in a situation where we provide for early education. You know, if you send a child to school, no matter what the background is, not to daycare, but to school, where they teach reading, writing, arithmetic at age 3, the cost is de minimis, and you increase by 56% the chance that that child, no matter what background they come from, will go through 12 years of school and on to community college if they choose, and be able to do that. 56%. Look, folks, they want to cut 226,000 teachers and staff. Could lose their jobs at Title I schools that serve the most vulnerable. And now they're turning their backs on the bipartisan budget deal. Speaker McCarthy made with me just a few months ago. after threatening to do something no one came very close to do it, shutting down and reneging on our national debt, which would have caused an international economic crisis. Well, they're back at it again, breaking their commitment, threatening more cuts and threatening to shut down the government again this month. Now, what they do talk about is claiming all these cuts are going to reduce the deficit. When it comes to reducing deficit, let's compare the records a little bit. Under my predecessor, you remember the self-professed king of debt? Well, it turned out he was. He's actually the emperor of debt. He created more debt than any other president did in 1 year. No, I'm serious. For starters, when he passed that $2 trillion tax cut, skewed to the wealthy and big corporations, they didn't pay for a penny of it. The end result was that it has ballooned the national debt by nearly 40%. Over a 200-year accumulated debt, they ballooned it by 40%. Well, I've taken a different approach with the help of your delegation. And I'm not being solicitous when I say that. You have the best delegation in the country. And that's not just because my whole family's from Baltimore. Look, we just cut the budget deficit by they helped me cut the deficit by $160 billion. $160 billion. You know how we did it? By giving Medicare the power to negotiate for lower prescription drug costs. I, along with your senators and congressmen, have been trying for our whole careers to take on Big Pharma. Well, they've intimidated. They spent $200 million on having their lobbyists make sure that didn't happen. But guess what? It happened. We finally won. Not a single solitary Republican voted for that. And now they want to repeal it. I hope American seniors are listening because we've made enormous progress here. Let's be clear. We pay more for drug prices for prescription drugs than any nation in the world. And let me be precise with you. If you go in and have a prescription and you go into a drugstore here in Maryland or anywhere in the United States, and you get the same prescription in Toronto, Canada, or London, England, or Paris, France, or Madrid, Spain, you're going to pay somewhere between 20 and 40% less in those other countries. Same exact drug, made by the same exact company. It's wrong. And guess what? We changed it, and we're not going back. I don't get it, man. Up till now, seniors have been paying up to $400 a month for their insulin. We've reduced that to $35. And at $35, the drug company is still making 350% profit. Because the guy who invented the insulin for diabetes didn't patent it because he wanted it available to everybody. To make it and to package it costs $13 to $14. And they're paying $35 now for it. $35. Democrats just got, and Republicans are trying to take that away. We did something else, too, you should be aware of. Just a few years ago, as was pointed out, 55 of the largest corporations, the Fortune 500, paid zero in income tax. And they made $40 billion. I said I was going to do everything I could to make sure they start paying their fair share. Well, we changed that. Now the biggest corporations have to pay a minimum tax of 15%, so they don't get away with paying nothing. As a matter of fact, they're supposed to be paying a minimum of 21%. 21%, that's what the tax law says. You know, big corporations are, by the way, I know a little bit about big corporations. I'm from Delaware. More corporations are incorporated in Delaware than every other state in the United States of America combined. And look, I want them to do well, but pay your taxes. But they're complaining. So MAGA Republicans are carrying their water. They want to go back to telling them, pay nothing again, and you have to pick up the tab instead. You pick up the tab. Not only are they refusing to take corporations, make them pay their fair share. Early this week was reported that MAGA Republicans are planning to give an additional, this is not, again, this is all public, an additional $1 trillion tax cut. $1 trillion tax cut for big corporations. We're doing very well, I might add. Apparently, they think corporations, which make record profits in recent years, pay too much in taxes. It's unbelievable. To hear mega Republicans in Congress tell it the only way to reduce the deficit is to cut Medicare, Social Security, that you have paid for in your whole life. From the time you've had your first job, you had to pay into Social Security. Out of every paycheck. Give me a break. These guys are just plain wrong, and they proved it. On my watch, the deficit already has fallen by over $1 trillion. $1 trillion so far. I signed legislation to reduce the deficit by another $1 trillion over the next decade. And the budget I'm putting forward this year would cut the deficit by another $2.5 trillion on top of that. We're doing it by making the wealthy and big corporations begin to pay their fair share. I'm not talking about 70% taxes. I'm talking about 36% fringe taxes, 24% taxes. How many of you think the tax code is fair? Raise your hand. Even if you're making it. No, I'm serious. Even if you're making a lot of money. You know, we've gone in the pandemic from about 740 billionaires in America to 1,000. Well, guess what? These billionaires pay an average of, guess what? Less than 8% in federal taxes. Less than 8% on a yearly basis. They pay a lower tax rate than a firefighter, a teacher, a cop. How can that be right? How can that possibly be right? My friends came up with an answer. Guess what? The Republicans, last time out, when they were in charge, and last president was there, what they did was they cut the number of tax examiners. They cut them. Everything, well, that's great. You want to get rid of those tax examiners. Guess what? They cut all the folks that are very sophisticated tax examiners. That takes years to learn how you go through $1 trillion income, how you determine what they pay. They cut them. It's time billionaires began to pay at least a minimum tax of 25%, for God's sake. There'll still be multi-billionaires at that. We ought to make the tax code more fair, not less fair. That's why I promised that no one making under $400,000, I've never seen that, but no one making under $400,000 will see their federal taxes go up a single penny. Like, I've kept that promise, and I will keep it. That's why I expect the child care tax credit, helping millions of middle-class families. It's a great benefit to those families. It increases economic, and by the way, it increases economic growth. All the things we do for middle-class and working-class families increases economic productivity. When you have a child care tax credit, you're a middle or lower middle-class income person. Guess what? It means you can get help for your kid and you can go to work at the same time. And now MAGA Republicans in Congress did not support continuing that extended tax cut. And this week we learned what happened as a result of their position. About 3 million more kids are now living in poverty because we've cut that again. I'm fighting to restore the child tax credit and once again lift these kids out of poverty. Folks, it wasn't that long ago we were losing jobs in this country. In fact, only 2 presidents in American history with fewer jobs the day they left office than when they started. One was President Hoover, and the other was Donald Hoover Trump. Seriously, only 2 presidents in American history. And look, you may remember my predecessor promised to be the greatest job president in history. Well, it didn't really work out that way. He lost 2 million jobs over the course of his presidency, 2 million. We've created 13.4 million new jobs. We not only recovered all the jobs we lost during the pandemic, we've added millions more. We've seen record lows in unemployment, particularly, and I've focused on this my whole career, particularly for African Americans and Hispanic workers and veterans. You know, the workers without high school diplomas, the lowest unemployment rate in 70 years for women now. You know, by the way, when I got elected, I promised I wanted an administration that looked like America. I got more women in the cabinet than any president has ever in history. And I got more women than men in the cabinet. I put more black women on the appellate court and the Supreme Court than every other president combined in American history. A higher share of working-age Americans are in the workforce now than any time in the past 20 years. And job satisfaction is higher than it's been for 36 years. And we're growing the economy. You know, my dad used to have a saying, and I give him my word this is real. I'm not making this up. He'd say it all the time. He'd say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than the paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. That's bidenomics. That's the objective of it. Prior administration promised to revive manufacturing. They failed. I'm not sure they even tried, to be honest with you. No, I'm serious. I'm not sure they tried. As a matter of fact, they had a theory. And ship jobs overseas, cheaper labor markets, and import the product. Well, I went back, and I don't know, guys, I didn't know this, and I've been around a long time. I didn't know that Roosevelt passed in 1934 a piece of legislation that said that when a president is given money by the Congress gets money appropriated to spend for the American people, he should only hire American workers and only use American products. No president ever tried to really keep that going, but I have. And here's the deal. That's why we've grown so rapidly. If we don't have the technique, we don't have the particular skill required, you can make an exception and not spend it on an American worker. But we got to invest in America. And we're making things in America again. You know, folks, it's just amazing how much has changed. We used to have the largest economy in the world in terms of manufacturing. Under my presidency, America has surged to the front again. We're now on track having the strongest economy in the world for decades to come. Prior administration promised to rebuild our nation's infrastructure. Remember Infrastructure Week? Every week, and then Infrastructure Month? Well, guess what? It never came. Great real estate builder, the former president, he didn't build a damn thing. You know, I mean, think about this. Can you believe we used to have the best infrastructure in the world? We had the best infrastructure, not a joke, the best infrastructure in the world rated by all these international agencies. But guess what? We fell to rank number 13 in the world. 13 in the world, 12 countries. Better infrastructure, bridges, roads, across the board than we have. Well, when I signed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, these guys helped me get through. We're now investing in America again. Our roads, our bridges, our ports, our airports, high-speed internet, removing lead pipes from everyone so they have access to clean water. Look, folks, because you can't have the strongest economy in the world without the best infrastructure in the world. How can you do both? I mean, you can't. We're making sure we're growing the economy in a way that benefits all Americans. We awarded a record $70 billion in federal contracts to small, disadvantaged businesses, and more black small businesses are starting up than any time in American history. Now we have the fastest economic growth from the pandemic of any world economy. We have the lowest inflation rate among the major economies. And we have a lot more to do, though. And I'm going to get those gas prices down again, I promise you.
Thank you.
But seriously, we're living through one of the greatest job creation periods in our history. And folks, it's not an accident. It's not an accident. That literally is our economic plan in action, bidenomics in action. Let me close with this. And there's a lot more I know we could talk about. I wish I had a chance to take all your questions, but I'm going to get in real trouble if I do that. But all kidding aside, we've faced some pretty tough times in recent years. But America didn't give up. America never gives up. I've said it 1,000 times. There's no quit in America. No quit. But you hear from our friends on the other side, the MAGA Republicans, what's wrong with America. Everything's wrong with America. They keep telling us America's failing. Well, they're wrong. They're failing. America's not failing. America's winning. And there's one reason for it. You, all you people, get up every single morning and go out to try to do the right thing. You, the American people, you're the one with a grit and determination, not me or your elected officials, you. Whatever we've set our mind to as a country, we've always accomplished. We've never failed. Not a joke. Think about it. Name me one objective America's set that they haven't been able to accomplish if we work together. Name one. And folks, that's not going to change. I've long said it's never been a good bet to bet against America. It's not a good bet today. America's best days are ahead of us, not behind us. And I can tell you, I know virtually every major world leader and know most of them pretty well. Every one of them is looking to us. Every single one of them. I can honestly say I've never been more optimistic about America's future. Never, never, never. We just remember who the hell we are. We're the United States of America. And this is for real. This isn't a campaign speech. This is for real. There's nothing beyond our capacity when we work together. Nothing. Folks, one of the reasons I'm so optimistic is we really are the most unique nation in the world. And they say, well, every nation says it. No, think about it. I mean, in real terms. I think we're the most unique nation in the whole world. Every other country is based on ethnicity, geography, religion, race, or creed. We're the only nation, and this is literal, think about it. We're the only nation based on an idea. An idea. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. We've never fully lived up to it. We've never walked away from it. These other guys are trying to walk away from it. I'm about to make a major speech. I made one back when I ran the last time in 2020 up at Independence Hall. Democracy is at stake, folks. Our democracy is under attack. And we got to fight for it. I taught at the University of Pennsylvania for 4 years, and I used to teach political theory. And folks, you always hear every generation has to fight for democracy. And I found myself, it's automatic. We didn't have to believe it. But we do. We do. And look, it's who we are. I had a long talk with my counterpart, who I've known for 25 years, Vladimir Putin. And he started to, he said to me, this was early on when I first got elected, and we're talking about strategic doctrine and keeping nuclear weapons out of space, et cetera, in Geneva. And he sat there, and when I was making the case, he looked at me and he said that the reason I'm reluctant to talk to you about this, you expect me to bring China along all the time. I said, oh, I don't expect you to bring China along. So you got essentially a 6,000-mile border with China. Your tundra is melting in the Arctic Circle. Methane is coming out. You got a lot of problems. And China doesn't respect you that much. And he looked at me. He kind of stood up. I said, we have Canada to our north, Mexico to our south, Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. We got the most heterogeneous nation in the history of the world. And we're together. I'm not asking you to do anything except yourself. It ended up with a very different ending, but my point is, the idea of who we are, there's nothing beyond, I promise you. Madeleine Albright was right, fellas. We are the central nation. There's not a single room I walk into, not because of Joe Biden, I mean that sincerely, because I'm President of the United States. Not a single nation I walk into, room I walk into. The rest of the world doesn't stop and say, basically, what do you think? Not a joke. We just got to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. God bless you all. Thank you.